Um, Gauta Mataji, I've made you co-host, so you should be able to record.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I've pressed record, sorry.
No, that's fine, thank you. My apologies, I just saw the chat now, so apologies, there's a bit of a delay. So Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you very much, and thank you to Divyanam Prabhu for very warm welcome. And I seek all your blessings of the Vaishnavas here gathered, that I may be able to speak something, and also your permission that I can speak something on this chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita. So we'll just start with the invocation prayer. So Om Agyana Tirimandasya Gyananjala Shalakya Chakshuran Militamena Tasmai Shri Gurue Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swaya Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasha Swami Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachayine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatayine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you. So I'm just going to share my screen now. And can everyone see my screen?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we continue on the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and I believe Divyanam Prabhu, Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu, and Mukundahari Prabhu have covered verses 16, 15, 16, 17, and we're picking up from verse 18 of chapter 15. So we're going to recite again the Sanskrit, the translation, and the purport.
Prabhuji,
Just,
would you mute everyone, please? Because there's so much noise we can hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone's muted. Hope that's better now.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Yasma charam atito aham aksharad api chotamaha atosmi loke vedecha atita purushotamaha. Because, purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, because I am, sorry, a translation, because I'm transcendental beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I'm the greatest, I'm celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as the Supreme Person. So purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. No one can surpass the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, neither the conditioned soul nor the liberated soul. He is therefore the greatest of personalities. Now it is clear here that the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are individuals. The difference is that the living entities, either in the conditioned state or in the liberated state, cannot surpass in quantity the inconceivable potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is incorrect to think of the Supreme Lord and the living entities as being on the same level or equal in all respects. There is always the question of superiority and inferiority between the personalities. The word Uttama is very significant. No one can surpass the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The word Loke signifies in the Purusha Agama, the Smriti scriptures, as confirmed in the Nirkuti dictionary. Lokyate Vedarto Nena. The purpose of the Vedas is explained by the Smriti scriptures. The Supreme Lord, in his localized aspect of Paramatma, is also described in the Vedas themselves. The following verse appears in the Vedas. Chandogya Upanishad 8.12.3. Tavad esha samprasado asmach charirat samutaya param jyoti rupam sampadya svena rupani binispasyadete sa uttama purusha. The super soul coming out of the body enters the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. Then in his form, he remains in his spiritual identity. That supreme is called the Supreme Personality. This means that the Supreme Personality is exhibiting and diffusing his spiritual effulgence, which is the ultimate illumination. That Supreme Personality also has a localized aspect as Paramatma. By incarnating himself as a son of Satyavati and Parasara, he explains the Vedic knowledge as Vyasadeva. So I believe you, Divyana Prabhu, Vindanchana Prabhu, or Mukundari Prabhu may have already mentioned about the 3-sloki Gita. And in the Bhagavad Gita of Acharya Srila Prabhupada, in the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita, he mentions that in Kali Yuga, actually Krishna mentions that in Kali Yuga, he knows in Kali Yuga that our lifespans are very, very small, and also we are very busy with many other activities. And he's given the concession that just by reading this one literature, Bhagavad Gita, all success can come. And by following this one literature, you do not need to read any other literature. And again, Krishna has given further concession that because we're so busy that some of us may not even have time to read the whole Bhagavad Gita. And so he put the Chatusloki Gita, which you covered in the 10th chapter, verse 8 to 11, which is actually the summary of the Gita. And further to that, Srila Prabhupada mentions of acharyas like Madhvacharya and Srila Prabhupada himself, that Krishna has given even more further concession where he summarized everything in the 3-sloki Gita. And the 3-sloki Gita actually comprises of these 3 verses in chapter 15, which is verse 16, 17, and 18. And these 3 verses of Acharya say present as the essence of Vedanta. Now, we hear of the word Vedanta quite frequently, regularly, even when we say the pranam mantra of Srila Prabhupada, we say Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So may I ask of the audience, what does Vedanta mean? Anyone who'd like to unmute themselves and maybe just explain?
Is it the essence of the Vedas, Prabhuji?
Close. But I'm looking at the literally meaning of Vedanta. When you break down the word Vedanta.
Okay,
Ved, know of the Veda?
Ved and Anta, and.
Yes. So,
No.
yeah, exactly.
Conclusion of the Veda.
Yes.
And
Yeah. So you've got it on the head. So it was Puja Mataji and was it Rupa Mataji who mentioned this? So
Yes.
Veda means knowledge, and Anta means the end. So conclusion of all knowledge is actually Vedanta. And somebody who's mastered the conclusion of Vedic knowledge is actually called Bhakti Vedanta. And that's why we mention our dear Srila Prabhupada as Swami Bhakti Vedanta, as in A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. So Vedanta is the conclusion of the Vedas. And with any literally presentation or a big piece of work, the goal is to actually grab the essence of that literary piece. So like if it's a big piece of literature and you don't have the time to read, but if somebody just gives you the conclusion of that literature, then in essence, you've got a summary and you've read that literature. So again, introduction to Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada has so beautifully put down the introduction to Bhagavad Gita that just by reading the introduction to Bhagavad Gita is so profound, and you just get so much spiritual knowledge, energy. And there he quotes the Gita Mahatmya. So the Gita Mahatmya is actually the glorification of the Bhagavad Gita, which was translated and written by Sankaracharya. And I'll pick the 4th verse from the Gita Mahatmya, which reads, because Bhagavad Gita is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one need not read any other Vedic literature. One need only attentively and regularly hear and read Bhagavad Gita. In the present age, people are so absorbed in mundane activities that it is not possible for them to read all the Vedic literatures. But this is not necessary. This one book, Bhagavad Gita, surface because it is the essence of all Vedic literatures, and especially because it is spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there again, in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada quotes the Gita Mata verse 4, and this is actually the concrete evidence, the proof that just by reading this one book, if you don't have time to read any other books, we can make our life successful. So moving on to verse 18, I just wanted to analyze it from the perspective of context and content. So when you try to understand something, if you understand the context of why we're trying to understand something, and then deep dive into the context, that gives you a bit of background and lets you kind of familiarize and understand it a bit more. So I'm just going to mute everyone again, sorry. Okay, so yeah, going back to context and content. So before we dive deep into 15:18, I'd just like to bring the preceding and the following verses. So if you look at the preceding verse, which is Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, verse 15, Krishna in that verse says that I am the compiler of the Vedanta and the knower of the Vedas. So here Krishna himself is saying that he's the one who's compiled the conclusions of the Vedas, and also he's the knower of Vedas. So in essence, he's the one, the source of the Vedas, because as we know, Krishna is the source of everything. So here he actually states that concretely that he's actually the knower of the Vedas, the compiler, and the Vedas emanate from him. And then if we look at the following verses from verse 18, which is 15:19, Krishna says that whoever knows me as the Supreme is the knower of everything. And he says that the way, and whoever knows me as the knower of everything, he surrenders unto me through devotional service. So now I'd just like to rewind back to, you might cover this in your previous sessions about the three stages of spirituality in the process of gaining spirituality, which is Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. So are you all familiar with this, the three stages?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So now from that, I'll just briefly explain what the three terms mean. So Sambandha is our relationship, Abhideya is the process, and Prayojana is the goal. So with anything, once you've got the why, what, and when, then it makes that process or what you're trying to attain very simple. So similarly in spiritual life, Krishna, the Acharyas have given us this threefold process. And when we relate verse 19 to those processes, we can see that 19 actually transpires as Abhideya, which is the process of attaining. Because Krishna says in verse 19 that whoever knows me as the Supreme is a knower of everything, and he surrenders unto me through devotional service. And then when we move to the next verse, which is 20, the concluding verse of the chapter, Krishna there says that the most confidential part, that whoever understands becomes wise and perfect. And so when we understand Krishna, we've actually attained the goal of, when you fully understand Krishna, is of pure bhakti, which is the goal of attaining him, and through the process of devotional service. So then you may ask that where does Sambandha come into all this? And Sambandha is actually verse 18. So we'll move forward to verse 18. And the content, so now we'll cover a bit of the content. So before we come to the conclusion why verse 18 is kind of is transpires as Sambandha Gyan. So 15:16, Krishna mentions two types of beings there. He mentions fallible and infallible. So what are the Sanskrit terms for fallible and infallible? We've gone through these in the previous verses. So if somebody would like to just unmute and say the Sanskrit.
Fallible is
Perishable.
Shara and Akshara. Akshara is infallible.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, brilliant. So Shara and Akshara. So fallible is Shara, and it negates. In Sanskrit, when you put a in front of any word, it negates. So Akshara is infallible. So Krishna mentions in 15:16 Shara and Akshara. And then in 15:17, he mentions that besides the two, there is the greatest, the supreme. So he actually he puts out there that besides these two, there is one other person who's superior than anything, anyone in the entire kind of cosmic manifestation, and also in the spiritual world. And in 18, he actually again emphasizes that no one can become equal to the supreme. So neither the Shara or Akshara can become equal to the supreme. And when we understand this actually statement of Krishna, then we can come to understand our Sambandha Gyan, which is our relationship between the Jiva and Krishna. So again, a very, the three sloki Gita also very powerful to defeat the Mayavadi philosophy, which will kind of explain a bit more as we go along. So 1518, again here we can see fallible and infallible, and then we've got the infinite. So when we try and understand this from the perspective of whole and part, so infinite and infinitesimal, then it kind of makes it a bit more clearer. So the fallible, the Shara and Akshara beings, the fallible and infallible, can be classified as infinitesimal, and the supreme is beyond the fallible and infallible, and he is classified as infinite. So can I just generally ask, do we understand the meaning of infinitesimal and infinite? Because even for me, when I heard the first time I heard infinitesimal, I was like, wow, that's a big sounding word, and what does it mean? So does everyone know the meaning of infinitesimal?
It's minute.
Yes. So it's, yeah. So when you look at from the perspective of infinite, infinite means unlimited, and infinitesimal means limited, so minute, so very small. So when we again understand this verse 18, very key verse in trying to understand our relationship with Krishna, and when we understand that we as jivas are infinitesimal to the infinite, then it makes everything much more simpler and easy to attain. So again, when we discuss the Mayavadi philosophy here, the Mayavadi say, they talk about impersonalism, they talk about merging the Brahma Jyoti, and one of the other things they mention is that we are all God. So now this statement actually is conclusively proves that no, we are not all God, because Krishna himself says that beyond the fallible and infallible, there is someone more greater, which is himself. So Srila Prabhupada used to quote this verse when we used to discuss about refuting the Mayavadis quite frequently, and also the three sloki, the Gita. And again, to try and understand our relationship, the Sambandha, so we go back to the infinite, infinitesimal, and when we look at it as part and parcel of the Lord, like we, the small jivas, are part and parcel of the Lord and not equal to the Supreme Lord, then we start piecing together the bigger picture. And then we look at it from the whole and part perspective. So when we look at it from the whole and part perspective, again, the jiva is very small. Also in the Shastra is described that the dimension of the soul, which we are, is very minute. Can I again ask somebody to quote what the Shastra say? What is the dimension of the soul?
1/10,000 of a hair follicle.
Hair follicle.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think we've got a microscope that powerful to date that can actually magnify to that level. And that's why Prabhupada said, the scientists, they're still very perturbed. They're saying, how can we actually see the existence of the soul? Because they don't have the tools to actually do that to date. And that's why scientists refute, But now things are changing with consciousness coming into play, into science and everything. So again, yeah, things are changing and slowly moving towards accepting Shastra. So yeah, when we look at it from that perspective, 1/10,000, the tip of a hair, that's really, really so small. And when we compare it to the infinite, which is Krishna, we can imagine how insignificant we, the jivas are. So these three sloki verses also help us to understand why the jiva have come to this material world. I'm sure when I first came into Krishna consciousness spirituality, And, you know, they used to say, oh, you've come here because of this, because of that. And, you know, and I used to wonder, but then if God is so all loving, all powerful, why would he put us in a prison of suffering? I'm sure a lot of you may have the same sort of, you know, questions that kind of have gone through your mind, and also the same questions as why do good things happen to bad people, and so many things. And this three sloki verses actually help us understand that as well. And so if we understand that we are infinitesimal, a fragment of the Supreme, but then again, if we accept that we are equal to the Supreme, then we cannot understand how or why we came to this material world. But if we try and understand from Shastra, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, the Puranas, Ithas, that the infinitesimal soul is actually an eternal part and parcel of the Lord, then it is very easy to understand. So why? Because just like a spark from a fire has got the same qualities as the fire, but in very minute proportion. So you got a big fire burning, a spark flies out. You may be able to burn the grass or a fence or something, or you may not be able to, because the quality are the same as fire. It's hot and it can burn, but the quantity is very small. So we have inherited all those qualities from the Supreme Lord, but in very minute quantities. And the reason for us coming into existence in the material world is that misuse of the independence uh, from the Lord, and that's why we've primarily come into this material world. And again, Krishna being so kind, he does not check our free will, so he always gives us that free will, and it's through that misuse of our free will that we've come into this material world with the idea that we will become enjoyers. But again, there is Prakriti and Purusha. So Prakriti are the ones who are enjoyed, which is us, the Jivas, the soul, and Purusha is the enjoyer. So again, Shara, Akshara, somebody beyond these two, which is the Supreme. So there can only be one Supreme, one enjoyer, and we are all meant to be enjoyed by the Supreme in the capacity of being servants. Then again, you'd ask the question, but doesn't infallible mean that they're already liberated? Yes, so infallible, like our Acharya Srila Prabhupada was a liberated soul. He came from the spiritual world to give us guidance, to give us this method, the process this of Sambandha, Abhidaya, Prayojana, to get out and go back to the spiritual world where we can enjoy, where there's no Janma Miti Chara Vyadi, no birth, death, old age or disease, there's no suffering. So yeah, but again, Prabhupada himself emphasized many a times that he was not God. And there have been many examples where he had a conversation with a few guests and where the guests were saying, we are all God. I am God, you are God. And he said, no, I am not God and you are not God, but you are dog. So sometimes Prabhupada was very direct, and, you know, people go a bit taken back. But why is he calling me a dog? But sometimes sadhu in Sanskrit means somebody who cuts through. So sometimes you need that direct approach to shock people out of their illusion, out of, you know, their misconceptions. And there've been other cases where in a Pandal program in India, Prabhupada was giving a lecture, and then somebody got very excited and he said, "You are God," and Prabhupada said, "No, I'm not God. You're dog again." So Prabhupada himself, you know, he emphasized that there can only be one Supreme, which is beyond the fallible, infallible, and he's infinite. So again, yeah, very, very key verse. So moving on. So when we talk of the Lord, we also talk of the complete whole. So there is no meaning of speaking of the infinite when we cannot refute and debate, in the sense that we have to understand that the opposites also exist in the Lord. So he's the greatest, but at the same time, he's the smallest. Why? Because he exists as Paramatma even in the smallest of beings, a bacteria, amoeba, the atoms. So he's the greatest because the universe is emanate from him. So he's the greatest, and also he's the smallest. He's also personal and impersonal. Why? Because the impersonal is, think of him as the glaring effulgence, like the glaring effulgence around the sun, and they think of meditating and merging into that effulgence. indulgence. But we as Krishna Bhaktas, we as following Vaishnavas, we know that Krishna is personal. He's got a form, he's got a name, he's got associates, he's got paraphernalia. Like in this beautiful picture, you can see him holding a dove in his hand. You've got a cow next to him, a deer. So he's personal. He's got, we can relate to him in very personal ways. And so when we understand that the infinite, the supreme is a complete whole, then we start to understand again, why the divisions and why certain sampradayas or the Mayavadis think of him as impersonal, because they've only got limited understanding of him. But Prabhupada and our acharyas have given us such nice literatures and like these verses from the 3-sloki Gita that makes us understand that beyond that, there is the personal aspect. And when we form the relationship, the sambandha with that personal supreme being, then life becomes easy for us and we can attain devotional service so nicely and easily. So the relationship between the Jivatmas and the Supreme One is of love constitutionally. So, and this constitutional love is what we call bhakti. And bhakti is the process of attaining the goal, which is to go back to Krishna, back to his wonderful abode. So again, the question might come, but then why did Krishna create us jivas? So I don't know, has anybody thought of this? Like why Krishna created us jivas? Or you might have pondered across in your mind why?
One, because we desired the independence.
Yes,
And
thank you.
secondly, because Krishna wanted to fulfill his desires as well.
Yes, so thank you, Amma Mataji. Yeah, so one was the misuse of the independence because we wanted to be the lord of all we survey. And the other is Krishna had the desire, he wanted to have the relationships. So again, if we take the example of subjects, there is no meaning to subjects unless there is a king. So when there is a king, he needs to have subjects to have in his kingdom. So similarly, in the perfection of creation, the Lord manifested the jivas, to have his relationship with us. Again, we come from the whole, so we are part and parcel. Just like you've got a fan and the fan has got the blades. It's part and parcel of the fan. But when you remove the blades, the fan is going to be unusable, In separation, we don't mean anything. Like cogwheels in a machine. As soon as you remove everything and put them on the floor, it defeats the purpose of having a machine. So in separation, we are very weak. But when we think of Krishna as part and parcel, not from the perspective they're going to merge into him as impersonalist thing, but from that servitude attitude, again, coming to Prakriti and Purusha, enjoyed and enjoyer, then we start to understand this a bit more easily again. So yeah, Krishna created us jivas basically for him to enjoy, not in a perverted way, but to have a relationship with us. Similarly, like say if you are if you won the lottery or you're given a island of your own, but then you are told you're going to be there on your own, you're not going to be able to take your family, your friends, or anybody, how would you feel? Or I mean, how long would you last there, to be honest? So again, that personal aspect, we are all personal beings, and by nature we are Sat Chit Anand, which is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. That's our true constitutional position. And again, so the fallible, actually we can be classed as fallible here, in the sense there'll be many pure Vaishnavas on this forum, so please forgive me, excuse me. I'm talking about just generally, I'm talking about myself as an infallible jiva, and then we'll have the infallible jivas who are already liberated souls, some coming here to teach us how to go back, and some already enjoying in the spiritual world in the capacity of serving Krishna. So the fallible are confined to this material prison, and the infallible are the liberated souls already in the spiritual world, serving Krishna. So in the 16th verse, Krishna states that there are two types of being, Shara and Akshara. And in the material world, Akshara have been kind of confined. In the spiritual world, they are the Akshara in the spiritual world and the Shara in the material world. serving the Supreme Lord. So those who are bound and those who are free. So we as fallible souls, as in I'm classifying myself, we are bound in this material world, in the shackles of the chains of Maya, and the ones in the spiritual world are free. And in this bound condition in the material world, there is one thing common to all of us, and which I'm sure all of you will agree is struggle for existence. We are all struggling in one way or the other. So this year 2020 has been a great struggle for many of us. The whole pandemic, the austerities we've had to go through, and then also job losses, the rationing in the supermarket. We're just struggling constantly, and the struggle is still not over because we've got winter coming, and that's another kind of worry on all of us. And so in 15:7, so in Bhagavad Gita chapter 15 verse 7, Krishna says that prakriti stani karshati. So karshati is struggle in this material prakriti, this material energy. We are struggling. So moving on, then in the material world, we can see that the Atma is distinct from the material body. We can see the body undergoes so many transformations, and then in the end, the Atma has to move from body to body. But in the spiritual world, there is no such transformations, because by Janma Mriti Jara Vyadhi is inconspicuous by nature. There is no birth, death, old age, and disease. So there, the Atma is in its true form, which is Sachit Ananda, and just like Krishna's body is ever Sachit Ananda Vigraha, he never takes a material form. And again, here in this verse, he says, I'm transcendental, beyond the fallible, infallible. And again, which is a strong statement that refutes the Mayavadi philosophy of merging to the personal, the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. Because beyond that, the transcendence, the spiritual world, which is transcendental. So again, understanding from the Shara and the Akshara, and then beyond that, which is infinite, and also Purusha Uttama. So in the verse, Srila Prabhupada says Uttama. He mentions Uttama, he emphasizes Uttama, and which means he's the greatest. And Purusha Uttama, so greatest than any other living being. So that is a bit of explanation, discussion on the verse, this verse 18. So moving on, I just wanted to go through a conversation with Srila Prabhupada. And I briefly mentioned about God and how Prabhupada refuted that he's not God. So this is a nice conversation he had with a couple of guests. And Srila Prabhupada's room conversation and morning walks are so powerful. It helps us understand, Shastra in a perfect light. So also it's nice to complement reading Srila Prabhupada's books with his conversations and his morning walk. So even if you can hear them. So I'll just go through this. Srila Prabhupada, so I'm just quoting, Srila Prabhupada is speaking. By following any guru or any principle, if you actually develop your love of God, then it is nice. Otherwise, it is a useless waste of time. That is the test. But as far as I know, these yogis say they are themselves God. They say that everyone is God, and then who is dog? So I think the idea is not very congenial. How can everyone be God? Then what is the meaning of God? Guest one speaks. I want to love everyone, Srila Prabhupada. That is bogus. You cannot love everybody. If you love God, then you can love everybody, because God is everything. Guest one. If God is everything, then why don't you love all beings one by one? Srila Prabhupada. If you love a tree, then you have to pour water on the root, not every leaf. If you want to maintain your body, then you have to supply foodstuff to the stomach, not to your eyes, not to your ears. When you get a nice cake, you don't put it here, he's indicating the ears. You put it in here, indicates the mouth. Why? That is the process. There are 9 holes in the body. Why do you put it in this hole? Guest one, yes, but Srila Prabhupada, first answer this. Guest one, well, I agree with you, but Srila Prabhupada, you have to follow the real process. Then you'll get it. That is love. Guest one, you have to go to the root, but in the meantime, you don't ignore everything else. I mean, Srila Prabhupada, if you ignore the root and you take the leaf, you simply spoil your time. Guest one, No, but what I wanted to say is, why can't love of God and love of matter go and rise up to Srila Prabhupada? Yes, if you love God, you love matter and God, because matter is the energy of God. Guest one. But you say that you will know that a technique is succeeding when your love for God will increase and your love for matter will decrease. Srila Prabhupada, what is matter? Matter is another manifestation of God's energy. If you love your body, then naturally you love your finger, the part of the body. So God is a supreme whole. Therefore, if you love God, then you can understand that you have to love everybody. Guest 2. What is God? Srila Prabhupada, what is God? Can you define God? Guest 2. No, is God supposed to be the energy, or is God supposed to be Srila Prabhupada? Energy is God's energy. Just as sunshine is the energy of the sun. Just try to understand the energy. Sunshine and the sun are not different. But if you are satisfied with just the sunshine, it is not the sun. Guess 2. Are you saying that energy is God? God is energy? Srila Prabhupada, energy being none different from God is in one sense God. But at the same time, energy is not God. Sunshine is the energy of the sun. But if when sunshine enters your room, you think the sun has entered my room, that is wrong. But sunshine is not different from the sun. Guess 2. It would appear that to claim that you can reach eternal bliss just by chanting is too easy. Srila Prabhupada, that is one process of self-realization. There are different processes of self-realization. For this age, when people are less intelligent, this process is right. Guest 1. What are you doing by chanting is kind of Srila Prabhupada. You chant and you will understand. If you have no child, then how can you understand the labor of producing a child? Guess 2. But that is like saying that if you haven't ever leaped into a well, you don't know what will happen to you if you leap into a well. Srila Prabhupada, first of all, you do not know yourself. The first sign of ignorance is that you are identifying yourself with this body, which you are not. First of all, try to understand yourself. Then you will understand what is God. You do not know yourself. Guess 2. But I'm God, right? I am God. You are God too. Srila Prabhupada, you are dog. Guess 2. But you are me and I am you. We are both God, right? Srila Prabhupada, no. Guest 2. Why not? Srila Prabhupada, you do not know what is the meaning of God. What do you mean by God? First of all, define. Guest 2. Everything is God. Srila Prabhupada, if you apply the definition, then you are God. First of all, define what is God. Guest 2. God is everything. God is it. Srila Prabhupada, that is not the definition. God is not everything. Guest 2. And it is God. It is all it. Srila Prabhupada, I say everything is God's energy. Not everything is God. Guess 2. Not everything is God. Srila Prabhupada, yes, the sunshine and the sun are one, but at the same time different, simultaneously. You cannot accept the sunshine as the sun. Suppose you are in the sunshine. You cannot say that you are on the sun planet. So that's the end of the conversation. So a very nice conversation that puts this whole three-sloki Gita into perspective. So what did you think of that conversation?
Very good explanation.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, so very powerful. See, Prabhupada's, a lot of gyan we get from Prabhupada's conversations, you know, and he puts the whole, the philosophy of the scriptures into perspective. So I would recommend that you can go online, you can go on Vedabase and read his conversations, his room conversations, morning walks, and make it a regular habit. You know, you can get these on your phone, and before going to bed, try and hear one of his room conversations or his morning walk conversations. When you supplement this with the Shastras, everything becomes alive. You know, you start to understand from a different perspective. So now, coming back, as you know, we are a Sankirtan movement, and Prabhupada said that ours is a pushing movement. You know, we keep pushing people, and a lot of you are already Sankirtan warriors on this group. And I think this was already mentioned by all the senior Vaishnavas that are presenting to you every day. We've got the Live to Give campaign, and the goal, the worldwide goal, is distribute 2 million Gitas. So, do you think we can distribute 2 million Gitas?
I'm
I
sure
think
we
everyone's quiet. Are they in shock or are they thinking
Yes, we
of
can.
strategies how to distribute the 2 million Gitas?
Yes, Prabhuji, we
Um,
can.
If we
Okay,
all work
that's
hard together, then it will be done, definitely.
we can do it. We can distribute 2
Yes,
million
we have to
Gitas.
do it.
But yeah, but worry not. 2 million Gitas is the worldwide goal. For us, as the expansion of the Bhaktivedanta Mana, our goal is only 35,000 Gitas. So you see, Srila Prabhupada gave the concession because in the Gaudiya Math, you had to chant how many rounds? You had to chant 64 rounds. And when Prabhupada came to the West and elsewhere, he said people started getting anxiety and worry. How are we going to chant 64 rounds? That is going to take us the whole day. And Prabhupada said, okay, 32 rounds. And then still people are in anxiety and worry. How are we going to chant 32 rounds? And then Prabhupada said, okay, 16 rounds, but no less. So like that, from 2 million, we've come down to only 35,000 Gitas. So all of you will agree that that's a doable goal, right?
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, 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 Prabhuji.
Thank you. So Shastra Dan is the ultimate charity, and actually are giving this knowledge to everybody else. How we relish in this chat session, discussing Bhagavad Gita so nicely in the association of devotees. So this is the poster, and we've got the link on the Bhaktivedanta Mana website already up, which is www.krishnatemple.com /Shastradan. The spelling of Shastradan and the link is SASTRADAN. So just bear that in mind. And we've got 4 options there already to be ticked, which is sponsor 15, Gitas 26, 52, 104, and the prices are 71, 50. I can't remember the top of my head, but it starts with 71 for 15 Gitas. So please do reach out to your family, friends, your contacts, and let's make this marathon is coming. So this Purushottam month, Kartik is next, and then Gita Jayanti in December, a success. And collectively, if we all get together, then I'm pretty sure we can do 35,000 Gitas and above and smash that goal. So I'd like to thank all of you again very much for your association tonight and for giving me the opportunity and blessings that I could say something on this verse 18 of the Bhagavad Gita. So now I'd like to open up to the audience for questions, reflections, comments, please. Thank you. So yeah, it's open to the audience. If you want to comment, questions on the discussion we had, or anything else, any reflections, please feel free. Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna Prabhuji. Oh,
Hare Krishna.
Very nice class. Thank you for finding time. This is a question more from my wife, and even I did not know the answer. So, and I tried to find, couldn't find. So, in the beginning, when Garbhodakshay Vishnu from his navel, Brahma came sitting on a lotus flower, and then the whole universe was created. 4 Kumaras came, and so on and so forth. So where does human being, we as part of planet Earth, come into all this? Because we know that Vaman Avatar saved planet Earth from the depths of the universe. But then we all know that we are the fallen souls, right? We wanted independence. So in the initial stage, is there any mention anywhere that okay, on the planet Earth, which has been saved by Vamana Avatar, we all will be inhibiting? Or how did it in the beginning came upon?
Yeah, very good question. And again, a very deep, philosophical, profound question. And again, I don't know if I'm the best person to answer this. Again, I am, as all of you, I'm learning, I'm growing. But again, in creation, in the 5th canto, the 3rd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's mention of creation. And also, if you look at just the back there, I've got this chart on creation. And what you're talking about is at the bottom circle there. I don't know if you can see it. It might be a bit far, but at the bottom circle there, you can see Garbhodaksha Vishnu in the Garbhodaksha ocean, and then from Brahma emanating, and then it discusses about the 14 planetary systems like Bhuloka, which you're mentioning Earth. We are in the middle, and there's 6 planets above us, and Brahmaloka being the highest material planet, and 7 below, Patal Loka being the lowest. And the question is how or why. Again, it's just, if you look at it from the analogy of, there's always this debate going on, who came first, the chicken or the egg sort of thing. And many people ask Prabhupada that we're trying to understand why or how we came here. And Prabhupada said, as you chant and as you start getting purified, then you start to understand Shastra. But again, don't put your emphasis onto why we've come here, but try and get out of it. But from your perspective, when Brahma sits on the lotus, through his glance, actually, the universe is created. So I'm sure you're already aware of this, but there's many billions of Brahmas, and there's many universes. We talk of parallel universes in science, and we talk of other things, lower beings coming, like when you talk of USA and Roswell 51, and they talk about aliens and UFOs. But this is actually a fact that the planets below us are also more technologically advanced. They would be more technologically advanced than us. So why not that they can create conceptions like UFOs and come and visit us? I don't want to divert away from kind of this topic. But again, when you try and understand from the Shastra of the Shastra Chakshu Gnan, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it mentions about giant eagles that travel between planets, interplanetary travel, and they lay their eggs in space, and then they hatch into eaglets and they start flying. So yeah, I'm trying to understand. Your question is how we came into being first, the Bhuloka, or is it how the universe came into being? Sorry.
My question is simple. Like, we all know that about a quarter of souls desired independence, and they came down as on the Bhuloka, right? On planet Earth, like me and everybody who fell down from the.
So it's not just Bhuloka. As I say, there's 14 planetary systems. So
Okay.
from Bhuloka, you could go to the lower planetary systems. You look like in Pataloka, again, there's Pataloka at the lowest region, and you've got other 7 lower planetary systems from Bhuloka. And then you've got the other planets above, with the highest being Brahmaloka. So not all the jivas came onto Earth. And the other thing is, there's not just a single Earth, because if you look at the picture here again, there's millions of universes, coming out from the pores of Vishnu, of Mahavishnu. So we could have another parallel universe with a similar Earth going on at the same time as here. So, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Let me put it this way. I wanted to know, where have I spoiled my karma to have ended up here from the beginning?
Okay, all right. So in that simple terms is misuse of independence, free will. We wanted to be lords of all we survey. So we wanted to be masters. And that's why we came here. As soon as you turn into the capacity of being a servant, then you qualify to go back to the spiritual world. So Krishna has given us that free will, independence. So as soon as the tendency was there to become masters, that's why we have all kind of ended up here.
Very good. Thank you so much. Perfect.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, thank you very much for the answer. Prabhupada also, I think, explained about, when, many people have this question, why did I end up here on earth? Or how did I come here from the spiritual world? So Prabhupada always said, if you are fallen in the ocean, at that moment, will you think, oh, how did I land up in the middle of the ocean? Will you think that, or will you call for help and get out of it?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Rupa Mataji. So that's what I was trying to put it, but you put it much better than I did. That Prabhupada said, why worry about why we've ended up here when somebody is throwing you a rope in the ocean like a life buoy, rather than saying, I'm not going to grab this until you tell me why we are here. Just grab it and escape and go back to Vaikuntha where there's no misery. So yeah, I think we shouldn't tax our brain too much why we've come here, but it's good to try and understand. But we've been given the process to escape. And also we are in the association of wonderful devotees, and with so many facilities like these, that we can make our life successful, and we all go back together. Just like, when we don't just go ourselves, but we take everybody together with us, because we are all going to end up enjoying each other's company in the spiritual world, just like we do here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
You said there are 14 planetary systems and millions of planets. So where exactly are the millions of planets? Is that in the 14 planetary systems, or is that separate? Or how could you please explain it a bit?
Yeah, again, this is a big discussion on the creation, which we'll cover in detail, like when we move to Srimad Bhagavatam. But in summary, so there's 14 planetary systems in the universe as we look at it. Like the universe we are in, that covers 14 planetary systems. But there's many billions of universes emanating from Mahavishnu's pores. So when he breathes out, many millions of universes emanate from his pores, just like the pores on your body. And when he breathes in, all of them annihilate and go back into him. So the 14 planetary system is actually part of a universe. And then there's billions of other universes like this. So we cannot understand or decipher this, but there's always that scientific, debate going on. And again, when we talk about UFO sightings, when we talk about unidentified objects, we talk about other beings, this is where it all comes into play. So this is not actually fiction. It's actually written in our Shastra. And if you start reading Srimad Bhagavatam, there's more about this in the 3rd canto, and then the 5th canto explains about the lower regions of the planetary system.
Okay, thank you.
And again, if somebody would like to add a bit more about creation, planetary, they might be more knowledgeable than me. Please feel free. Don't hold yourself back. If you want to answer to Sandeep Prabhu's or Premila Mataji's questions from that perspective, yeah, please do feel free.
Prabhuji, mine may be sort of like a basic question. The importance of the three Shloki Gita,
Yeah.
does it mean that if we can understand that, we can understand the Vedanta, or we can understand? I don't understand it.
Yeah, so 3 Shloki Gita, Prabhupada, again, he mentions that this is the essence of the Vedanta, it is conclusion of the Vedas. And he puts in the perspective of this is the extra concession given by Krishna. Because, sometimes we're very busy and we say, we don't have time to read all the 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Then Krishna says, at least try and understand the Chatu Shloki Gita, which is the summary, chapter 10, verse 8 to 11. And then further to that, if you even can't do that, then try and understand the 3 Shloki Gita. And the reason he says that is as soon as you try and understand the essence of the 3 Shloki Gita from the relationship of Sambandha, Abhidheya and Prayojana, then automatically you will come to the conclusion that we have to do devotional service. And what does devotional service mean? Devotional service is all encompassing, which means you have to also study the Shastras and understand Bhagavad Gita and do Arti, do service. So it's all encompassing. So Prabhupada, in a way, Prabhupada is known as, he's bent in 3 forms, isn't he? So he's also known to be crooked in a good way, in the sense that crookedly he will bring you to spiritual service. So he'll say, I've given you concession in the Bhagavad Gita, these 3 Shloki verses is all you need to understand. But as soon as you understand that, what happens? The bhakti in the heart starts flowing out, and then you automatically wants to start reading, enjoying, relishing Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and like that. So I don't know if that puts into perspective.
Yes, very, very good explanation. Yes, it's just a starting point for us to get into the bhakti path.
Yes, because bhakti is very difficult. To be honest, we are all busy. Even for me, I've got family commitments, I've got job commitments, and then you think, on the top of all this, I have to join chat session. I'm not saying for all of you, but I've got to present chat session today. I've got to prepare, and then I've got this meeting in the morning, and so many things. Why can't I just rest and relax, enjoy my dinner? So the mind is always, there's some sort of disturbance it's creating. But then Krishna, so he plays a trick on us and says, okay, then you just try and understand these 3 verses, and then you see how you feel.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. So I think time is, as with discussion with anything spiritual, time always expands. But I know some people have a working day tomorrow, and you've got other commitments. So if there's nothing else, then we'll call it a day and a night today. And once again, I'd like to thank every one of you for giving this opportunity to say something, and your blessings that I could speak something. Is only with the blessings of Vaishnavas that you can say something that might be useful. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you,
Wonderful
Keshav
class,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
Wonderful,
Thank
Prabhu.
you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Prabhu, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Prabhu,
Krishna.
take over.
Hare Krishna, thank you,
Krishna,
Prabhuji.
Vanchakapatarubhyascha kripa
Kripa
sindhuveva
sindhuveva cha
patitanam pavanebhyo
patitanam pavanebhyo
vaishnavebhyo namo
vaishnavebhyo
namaha.
namo namaha.
Amazing.
You done with now.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Keshav Prabhu. Nice class.
Hare Krishna, Divya Prabhu. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.